Imagine it is a Tuesday evening in 1991. You are sitting at the dinner table with your family, enjoying a quiet meal. Suddenly, the phone rings. On the other end of the line is a voice. It is smooth, confident, and sounds incredibly expensive. The man introduces himself as a senior vice president from a prestigious firm on Wall Street. He isn't trying to sell you a vacuum cleaner or a timeshare. He is talking about Kodak. He is talking about blue-chip American industry. He is talking about securing your financial legacy. It sounds professional. It sounds sophisticated. You hang up the phone thinking you just got lucky. You think you finally found an insider who wants to help you get rich. But you are wrong. You are not a client. You are prey. Because on the other end of that phone line, 300 miles away, that senior vice president isn't sitting in a quiet office with mahogany walls and leather chairs. He is standing on top of a cheap plastic desk, face red with adrenaline, screaming into the receiver. He is surrounded by 300 other 20-year-old college dropouts who are barking like wild animals in a zoo. There are no financial charts on his desk. There is no research. There is only a script. A script written by a failed dentist, designed to hack into your brain, bypass your logic, and trigger your greed. They called it Stratton Oakmont. The name was carefully chosen to sound like an exclusive British bank with 100 years of history. In reality, it was a slaughterhouse. And in this story, you are not the one eating the steak. You are the cow. They didn't sell stocks. They sold hallucinations wrapped in $3,000 Armani suits. Welcome to the real story of the Wolf of Wall Street. This is the only place on earth where your ignorance becomes someone else's Lamborghini. This is a world where your retirement fund doesn't just disappear into thin air. It is simply transferred from your savings account directly into their cocaine budget. To understand the machine, you have to understand the architect, Jordan Belfort. Forget the charming movie star for a second. Let's look at the DNA of the man. He wasn't a financial prodigy. He was a hustler from Queens who was allergic to being average. He actually enrolled in dental school first. On day one, the dean stood up and said, quote, "The golden age of dentistry is over. If you are here simply to get rich, you are in the wrong place." Jordan stood up and walked out of the room. He didn't want to fix teeth. He wanted to print money. He tried selling meat and seafood door to door. He was actually good at it. But selling frozen steaks has a limit. The margins are thin, and the meat eventually rots. Jordan realized that if he wanted infinite wealth, he needed a product that cost nothing to produce but could be sold for millions. He found Wall Street. But here is the twist. He didn't set up shop in the heart of Manhattan among the giants like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. He set up his kingdom in a garage in Long Island, far away from the regulators and the rules. He named it Stratton Oakmont. It was a masterclass in branding. The name sounded stable. It sounded aristocratic. It sounded safe. But inside, it was a frat house fueled by testosterone and illegal substances. Jordan didn't hire Ivy League graduates. He didn't want analysts with ethics or morals. He hired high school dropouts, bouncers, and kids who were desperate to be someone. He realized something terrifyingly simple. You don't need to be smart to sell stocks. You just need to sound certain. He built a cult. He told these kids that money was the only way to solve their problems. If you have a sick mother, get rich. If your girlfriend left you, get rich. He weaponized their insecurity. And he gave them a very specific set of instructions on how to view the client. Listen to how the training sounded on the floor. It went something like this. A senior broker grabs a rookie by the shoulder and points to the phone. He says, "Listen to me. The guy on the other end of that line? He wants to be rich, but he is scared. Your job isn't to make him money. Your job is to make him confident. You are not selling a stock. You are selling a story." The rookie asks, "But what if the stock crashes?" The senior broker laughs and says, "Who cares? It's all fugazi. It's fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never real. It is only real when you take the commission out. Your goal is to move the money from his pocket into your pocket. We don't create value here. We transfer wealth. Now pick up the phone and don't hang up until he buys or he dies." It started with a tactic called the Kodak pitch. This was the Trojan horse. The brokers would call you up and sell you a stock you knew and trusted. IBM, Kodak, Disney, blue chip giants. They weren't making much money on these trades. Maybe a 1% commission. But that didn't matter. They were buying something far more valuable than a commission. They were buying your trust. Once you made a small profit on Kodak, you were hooked. You thought this broker was a genius. You thought he was your best friend. And that is when the trap snapped shut. The next call wouldn't be about Kodak. It would be about a company you had never heard of. A tiny penny stock. A company that supposedly had a revolutionary new technology, or a cure for a disease, or a massive government contract. In reality, these companies were often just empty shells. Some of them were literally just a P.O. box in a strip mall. They were garbage. They were financial toxic waste. But here is the magic. On a blue chip stock, the broker made 1%. On these penny stocks, the commission was 50%. That is not a typo. 50%. If they sold you $10,000 worth of this garbage, $5,000 went immediately into the broker's pocket. The sales floor turned into a war zone. The energy was radioactive. 1,000 calls a minute. Dial, pitch, lie, close. Dial, pitch, lie, close. The brokers were fueled by quaaludes and adrenaline, screaming into the phones until their voices cracked. They weren't analyzing balance sheets. They were manufacturing urgency. They created a false sense of scarcity that drove investors insane with FOMO. Listen to the conversation shift. The broker lowers his voice, making it sound like a conspiracy. He whispers, "Look, John, I shouldn't even be telling you this. This information is strictly for my institutional clients, the big guys. But I like you, John. You trust me, right? I have a block of 5,000 shares left. It is going to explode by tomorrow morning. I can try to squeeze you in, but you have to move now. Do you want the shares? Or should I give them to the guy on the other line?" The client, sweating in his kitchen, panics. He says, "Yes, do it. Put me down for 10,000. No, make it 20,000. Don't let me miss this." Boom. The hook is set. The money poured in like a tidal wave. Stratton Oakmont wasn't just predicting the stock price. They were controlling it, because they controlled the supply, and they manipulated the demand. The stock prices skyrocketed. It looked like magic. The clients saw their account balances double, triple, quadruple on paper. They felt like geniuses. They felt invincible. They called their friends and told them to get in on the action. It was a mania. It was mass hysteria driven by greed. But nobody stopped to ask the most important question. If this stock is such a guaranteed gold mine, why is this stranger on the phone begging me to take it? Why isn't he keeping it for himself? Let's pause the screaming for a second and look under the hood. How exactly did this machine work? How do you turn worthless paper into hundreds of millions of dollars without actually producing anything? The mechanism is called the pump and dump. It is the oldest trick in the financial book, but Stratton Oakmont perfected it on an industrial scale. Imagine a casino. You walk in, and the dealer invites you to play a game of cards. But before you sat down, the dealer had already looked at the entire deck. He knows exactly what cards are coming. He decides who wins. He decides who loses. And most importantly, he owns the only door out of the building. Here is the step-by-step mechanics of the robbery. Phase 1 is the accumulation. Jordan and his partners would buy up millions of shares of a worthless penny stock for fractions of a cent. They would control almost the entire supply of the company's stock. They hoarded it in secret accounts, often using proxies or shell companies to hide their ownership. Phase 2 is the pump. This is where the army of brokers comes in. They pick up the phones and start the hype machine. They call thousands of unsuspecting investors and push the stock aggressively. Because the supply of shares is limited, since Jordan is holding most of them, even a small amount of buying pressure sends the price soaring. The stock goes from $1 to $2, then $4, then $8. The investors see the price rising and think it's real. They get excited. They buy more. The price goes higher. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The chart looks like a rocket ship taking off. Phase 3 is the dump. This is the kill shot. Once the stock price hits a peak, driven entirely by artificial hype, Jordan and his insiders start selling. They dump their millions of secret shares onto the market. They are selling at the top, cashing out for massive profits. But because they are dumping so many shares at once, the supply floods the market. The price buckles, it stalls, and then it crashes. Suddenly, the price is in freefall. It drops like a stone. $8, $5, $2, $0. The investors panic. They call their brokers, screaming to sell. Get me out! Sell everything! But here is the final cruelty. The brokers don't pick up the phone. Or they say, hold on, it's just a correction. Buy the dip. They refuse to execute the sell orders. They lock the doors while the building burns down. By the time the smoke clears, the stock is back to being worthless dust. The investors have lost everything. Their retirement savings, their kids' college funds, vaporized. But the money didn't just disappear. It went straight into the pockets of the people who rigged the game from the start. You can only defy gravity for so long. You can hide the lies in the paperwork, but you cannot hide the lifestyle. The excess was the catalyst for the end. It wasn't just the money, it was the noise. When you are 26 years old, making millions of dollars a week, and snorting enough powder to sedate a horse, you start to make mistakes. You get sloppy. You start to think you are God. Jordan Belfort crashed a helicopter into his own backyard. He sank a 90-foot yacht in the Mediterranean because he ordered the captain to sail into a storm while he was high. He was laundering money by taping stacks of cash to the bodies of Swiss mules. It was like a bad cartoon. This level of chaos attracts attention. Enter the FBI. Specifically, an agent named Gregory Coleman. He wasn't flashy. He didn't wear Armani. He was patient. He started pulling the threads. He looked at the bank transfers. He looked at the inexplicable spikes in these garbage stocks. He realized this wasn't just bad luck. It was organized crime. The walls started closing in. But the most pathetic part of the story isn't the investigation. It's the betrayal. In the movies, criminals have a code of honor. They protect each other. In reality, they are rats. When the pressure got too high, when the jail time became real, the loyalty evaporated. Jordan Belfort, the leader, the wolf, the man who preached loyalty above all else, he flipped. He didn't go down with the ship. He wore a wire. He recorded conversations with his best friends. He handed over his partners, his employees, the people who worshipped him. He traded their freedom for a reduced sentence. The raid happened in 1996. It wasn't glorious. There was no slow-motion shootout, just agents and windbreakers carrying boxes of files out of a strip mall in Long Island. The phones stopped ringing. The screaming died out. The screens went dark. The investors who were still holding the bag, they got nothing. No refunds, no apologies, just a letter from the court saying the assets had been seized. The party was over. The hangover was just beginning. Jordan was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served 22 months. And let's be clear about what kind of prison this was. It was a minimum security camp. He played tennis. He taught other inmates how to sell. He wrote a book. While his victims were losing their homes and their marriages, Jordan was refining his next product, his own infamy. Do not make the mistake of thinking this is ancient history. You might look at the people who bought penny stocks in the 90s and think they were naive. You think you are smarter. You have the internet. You have due diligence. But look around you. The boiler room didn't disappear. It just went digital. The guys screaming into phones are now guys typing in Discord servers and Telegram groups. The penny stocks are now shitcoins and NFTs. The revolutionary technology is now AI or the metaverse. The game is exactly the same. The psychology hasn't changed. Only the speed of the theft has increased. They still pump, they still dump, and you are still holding the bag. The only way to survive in a jungle full of predators is to understand how they hunt. Stop looking for the next get-rich-quick scheme. Start looking for the truth. That is why you are here. If you want to see through the smoke and mirrors, make sure you subscribe to Arca Insight. We don't sell dreams here. We dissect nightmares so you don't have to live them. Here is the darkest joke of all. The ultimate punchline to the joke that Jordan Belfort played on the world. He got out of prison. He wrote a memoir titled The Wolf of Wall Street. He sold the rights to Hollywood. Martin Scorsese directed it. Leonardo DiCaprio played him. The movie made $400 million. Jordan Belfort is now a motivational speaker. He travels the world teaching people the secrets of success. He charges huge fees to tell the story of how he robbed people. He is rich again, famous again, adored again. Meanwhile, the dentist who lost his savings is still working. The plumber who lost his retirement is still fixing pipes. They didn't get a movie deal. They got a life sentence of debt. The lesson of the Wolf of Wall Street isn't that crime doesn't pay. It is that crime pays beautifully. As long as you are entertaining enough to sell the rights to the story, the wolf is not in a cage. He is on a stage, and the audience is still clapping. Don't be the audience.